the Conservatives lack a certain will to power, and they reside in the cockpit of power by accident almost, because the Labour Party have not made themselves to appeal to the vast majority of the population. The further they went left, the less appealing they became, which means that the Conservatives didn't put forward an affirmative programme for action. They said, we are the lesser of two evils. And in a way, they're probably right most of the time. But the Labour Party has a strong executive spirit within itself. And this was definitely this was easily visible in like the 70s, leading on to Margaret Thatcher. And of course, very visible in Tony Blair's governance, moving into the 2000s. They have a plan. They intend to do something. Now, the thing they intend to do is evil, but they at least want something out of governance, whereas the Conservatives view governments almost like a retirement plan or something. Our job is to do the very bare minimum and sort of coast along on left-wing morality until we're forced to do something or the Labour Party takes over. And so in this way, they're kind of say uniparty is a bit cliche, but in many ways they are exactly the same organism that is symbiotically moving through the British political establishment. So when the executive half of this organism has acted too much and done too much and made too many mistakes, people choose the passive side of the organism to just kind of let the problem fade away for a bit. And then when they've decided, maybe we are up for a change now, they'll go back to the executive side. And we've had this back and forth this whole time. Whereas the Conservatives will never step off of that moral agreement. And this is why the Conservatives are now far more left-wing than the Labour Party.
I also think it goes even a little bit deeper than this. I mean, we could say that the likes of Tony Blair, whether you love him or hate him, he's a guy who looks at the situation and he says, look, this is what needs to be done, okay? I've got a plan to do it. And somebody says, let's say a lawyer comes up to him saying, Tony, you can't do that. It's against the rules. He will say,
I made the rules.
And he will also say, well, then the rules need to be changed. Those rules, they worked for that time, but now the circumstances are different. So we need a new set of rules. So he won't let the status quo get in his way because he is somebody who is always thinking of the outcome down the line, okay? Unfortunately, the Conservative, naturally, okay, and this is something Pareto talks about, they're a type 2 elite, they are rule followers.
Yep.
Okay, and what happens is the left set up a new set of rules, and just as the Conservatives start getting used to following these rules slavishly, pathetically following those rules, Labour come along and pull the rug away, and they'd be like, well, guess what? All the rules are going to change again, and look, now you're stuck with Kemi Badenoch as the leader, and look at you now, you're still stuck in that woke paradigm, and now we've parked all our tanks onto the lawn, which is a move that it was telegraphed a mile off. And
I mean, just a quick thing there. It was a few months ago that Keir Starmer first used the phrase open border experiment against the Tories. And everyone was like, oh, wow, that's strong rhetoric, but everyone let it slide. It's not that Starmer hasn't been edging towards this point already. He's seeded this a couple of times now.
Yeah.
And so I think you are correct on this. Morgoth had a great video on this, saying, look, essentially the Tories have rubbed diversity in the left's face at this point, and now Starmer is just going to attack to the hard right. And in that speech, every point he made like 4 or 5 substantive, hard right-wing talking points, and often Nigel Farage himself is not brave enough to raise. And Nigel Farage often raised the economic argument or the sort of the institutional argument. But Starmer, by calling it an island of strangers, what he's saying is we've dispossessed the British people of their own homeland, and this is why the left reacted going, oh, that's Enoch Powell. It's like, they're right, that is Enoch Powell. And it's also the deep relational language that Starmer used, can't be by accident.
There was a few times in that speech where I found myself almost involuntarily going, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, one of the things he did is he drew attention to the fact that the public have consistently voted against this. The public didn't want it. They voted for one thing. They got another thing. He called the Tories basically traitors. And he called them out for their betrayal of their own base, which is really strong. I mean, there are a few times, Carl, where I thought, have they been watching us? Like Labour,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, this is all the talking points we've been making for 5 years.
Exactly.
And it was just in a, I mean, it's a speech I would have given.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's the speech I would have given.
No, this is the thing.
I would have left out the diversity as good bits.
This is the thing that I've been, and I know, you know, my critics have said, well, this is a subversive figure. He's secretly working for Labour and so on.
Well, I
know a lot of people believe that, but I'm trying to think in terms of the outcome. What is the situation that will maximize the outcome that we want? And the main way of getting there, in my opinion, is to move beyond the kind of flim-flam of petty party politics. That is the thing that really holds people back, rather than seeing it as this party versus this party, this is this party, instead taking a wider meta-political view where almost you're just kind of like setting the tempo in a way. And I mean, let's face it, on this issue, the tempo is ours.
I think Rupert Lowe tweeted out the other day that this was the consequence of the online right. And I think in this regard, he is correct. I think if it wasn't for that consistent body of influencers and activists driving this issue every day, then I don't think it would have been as salient in the minds of the political elites as it clearly has been. And I think exactly what you say, is it's like they're watching our channels. Now they might be, they might not be, but the point is, if they're like, right, okay, immigration has gone too far, we need to come out with a strong anti-immigration perspective. Well, what suite of policy proposals would you have? What suite of arguments would you have? Well, they're right in front of you because they're in your comment sections all day, every day. And so you just lift them and go, yeah, this is the set of arguments that work. And they do work. And so even if they're not directly watching me or you or whoever, it's our arguments that are percolating through the discourse that they had no choice but to accept.
Yeah, another thing that I think that we can learn from the Dark Lord, from Blair, is the mindset. The future we want is inevitable. How we get there, that's up to debate, but it is going to happen. And it's going to happen in the direction that we want. That ball is rolling. Look at where we are now compared to 5-6 years ago. In a strange way, as Morgoth said, Boris is to kind of blame for that because of the ridiculous numbers that we've seen. But another thing that Blair does, he always has a plan, right? What we need to be doing is generating plans all the time. Okay, now it may be that they copy them. It may be that they never pick them up. But ideally, there needs to be plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan D, E. And all of them have to be ready to go or to be finessed or to be picked up, because politicians are lazy.
Yeah.
And
they're not that smart.
What people need to be doing is, you know, one of the worst things that Farage did when he gave that interview, I can't remember who it was with now. Maybe it was with Steve Edgington. I can't remember.
I'm against mass deportation.
Where he said, "Oh, it's impossible. It's politically impossible." Yeah. Okay,
that was the
this was just. I mean, he shouldn't have been saying that. He should have been saying, actually, it's perfectly possible in these parameters. Here are 10 different plans that the government could pick up tomorrow. Okay, so he, in a way, the problem with the model that the Tories and Reform have had is that they're always reactive. You shouldn't be reactive. You should be proactive. You should have the plan. And honestly, think like Tony. I mean, really, because
no, you're right.
I look at politics and be like, who is the guy who's getting results? Who is the guy who seems to always get his way? Well, it's Blair. Why? How? Okay, he's got advantages. He was the Prime Minister and he's got backing and so on.
But he's got an idea of what he wants.
But these principles, believing your future is inevitable, having the plan, I mean, these are things that we can kind of take inspiration from, let's just say.
Honestly, this is why I'm quite optimistic about Rupert Lowe, actually, because you can see that he has a plan. He knows what he wants. You know, how he gets to that position, who knows? Maybe he'll never will, etc., etc. But he's not just a conservative who is prepared to play in someone else's sandbox. He's prepared to set the rules. And so, finally, someone on the right, because I mean, Nigel Farage, for all his charisma, is still playing in the left sandbox. We're not the racist. The left are the real racist, is his genuine boomer core beliefs. And he will always have this.
I mean, ideally, another thing that we could learn from Tone is getting beyond this paradigm of the left versus right.
Yeah.
Blair always presented his set of solutions as neutral. Okay? And immigration's not a left or right issue.
And just as the thing, you'll notice Starmer did the same thing in his speech. He said it just wasn't in the British interest.
Exactly. It's the neutral position.
Yep.
So the neutral position is immigration needs to come down. The neutral position is we need to start increasing deportations.
Yep.
Now the only discussion left to have is how to get there and how precisely do we do it. And now the conversation's a lot closer to,
Steve Laws.
Well, I mean,
It really is, though.
Right? Yes, but what I was saying is now the conversation's a lot closer to the sort of paradigms that Blair sets up in, let's say, for digital ID. Well, the decision's already been taken. It's the only question is how quickly do we get there, or exactly do we get there, crossing the dots, and so that's one kind of positive development. I think is that people, I think, have kind of disaggregated themselves from loyalty to Tories or even loyalty to Reform. And if Rupert Lowe did anything, it was showing how actually support for Nigel is not automatic. Support for Nigel is not de facto, because people will, if we think Starmer is going to get us the results we want, for example, for Reform can't count on it. So what I mean, if any Reform guys are watching this, what can they do? Rather than tacking to the centre or playing the wet or whatever, they need to be saying, it's not enough, Starmer.
Yeah.
Where's your deportation plan, Starmer? Yeah. You're saying you're going to get the numbers down by 200,000. It needs to be 0 or whatever.
Why is the Boris wave still here if you've just said it was a failed experiment that betrayed us?
If you would like to see the full version of this premium video, please head over to lotuseaters.com and subscribe to gain full access to all of our premium